In 2003, a Stanford student named Elizabeth Holmes dropped out with a story Silicon Valley already knew how to love. Young founder, giant dream, tiny device, enormous confidence. Was Stanford really that hard? Or was dropping out just the billionaire starter pack? Not exactly. The point was that Stanford had become part university, part launchpad, part myth factory. If you left at the right moment, people did not always hear dropout. Sometimes they heard visionary escaping the syllabus. Holmes said she wanted to change medicine with a small machine called Edison, a device that would supposedly run many diagnostic tests from a single drop of blood. It sounded clean, fast, futuristic, and almost offensively convenient. This episode is about the machine underneath scams: status, trust, urgency, credentials, fear, hope, and the human weakness for a confident person standing beside expensive-looking equipment. The promise was simple enough to fit on a napkin. Prick a finger, take one drop of blood, run dozens of tests, send results quickly, maybe even let doctors monitor patients remotely. Can we get one? And does it accept payment in suspicious paperwork? Hold the paperwork. The question is not whether the dream was attractive. It obviously was. The question is why the dream became believable before the technology deserved that much belief. If she was such a famous genius, why did this case file introduce her after the smoke started? Because fame in a scam story is often retroactive. First, the founder becomes a symbol. Then, the symbol becomes a headline. Then, when the symbol collapses, everyone suddenly remembers they had concerns. So our central question is this: why do scams keep working, even on smart people? Scams do not always defeat intelligence. Sometimes they recruit it, flatter it, dress it in a black turtleneck, and ask it to stop asking rude laboratory questions. Here is the part where the archive adds a red flag so large it needs its own desk. A patent does not mean the invention works. A patent means the idea is original enough to be protected. Wait, she had a patent and still ended up in prison? That sounds like a paperwork betrayal. Exactly. Paperwork can say an idea exists. It cannot magically make the machine reliable. And in medicine, reliability is not a luxury feature. It is the part where patients are not accidentally drafted into a beta test. Was more than 11 years too much if a startup just tried and failed? Startups fail all the time. Some of them fail before lunch. That is the crucial distinction. Failure is not automatically fraud. A failed startup says, "We tried, it did not work, here is the wreckage." Fraud says, "Please keep investing. The miracle is basically working. Ignore the smoke coming out of the miracle." Holmes was sentenced in November 2022 to more than 11 years after being convicted of defrauding investors. The funny part is the confidence costume. The serious part is what bad information can do when it enters a patient chart.
Theranos is only one folder in a much larger cabinet. Fraud is not a rare glitch where one cartoon villain rubs his hands in a dark room. It is a recurring social technology. Are those fraud numbers really that enormous? Because the economy appears to be leaking through a suspicious hole in the floor. Some global estimates put annual fraud losses in the trillions. But any exact number needs a careful source check, because fraud has a reporting problem built into the business model. Have you ever been scammed? Asking for a friend, with excellent investigative posture and no shame. Most people have either been scammed, almost scammed, or saved by one lucky moment of suspicion. A fake delivery message, a weird bank alert, a link that looks official enough to make your thumb move before your brain gets a vote. If victims believe only fools get scammed, then smart victims stay quiet. Silence protects the scammer, not the victim. Bad idea meter, 8 out of 10, with bonus points for making shame do unpaid labor. This is where many viewers want to make a comforting deal with the universe. Maybe fraud works on careless people. Maybe victims are always someone else in a stock photo holding a phone upside down. How did powerful, educated, Wall Street adjacent people fall for this? Were their spreadsheets decorative? Because expertise is local. Being brilliant in diplomacy, finance, media, or law does not automatically make you a blood-testing engineer. The scammer does not need you to be stupid. The scammer needs you to be human in exactly the right direction. If famous, serious people can be fooled, what chance do the rest of us have with our regular human legs? Fear is useful only if it makes you slower and more curious. The people most targeted are often the people with money, access, ambition, or reputation to protect. The scammer looks at confidence and sees a handle. Status can create a private trap. Nobody wants to be the only important person in the room saying, "Excuse me, I do not understand the machine," so everyone quietly assumes someone else checked. The technical name for a lot of this is social engineering, manipulating people into giving access, money, information, or permission. It can look like a phishing email, a fake boss message, a fake investment opportunity, or a founder selling a reality that has not passed inspection. How do scammers assess personality? Are they therapists now? Because nobody should pay a copay to be lied to. Not therapists, opportunists with notebooks. A scammer watches for pressure points, urgency, loneliness, greed, shame, ambition, politeness, fear of missing out, fear of looking uninformed, or panic when a message says your account will close in 10 minutes. Good scams compress time. They make you act before you compare, call, verify, or ask the embarrassing question. They also borrow authority, a logo, a title, a famous investor, a lab coat, a government-looking form, a confident voice. Suspicion note: when a pitch punishes delay, that is not just sales energy. That is a behavioral trap. Legitimate truth can usually survive a phone call, a second opinion, or someone saying, "Can we see the actual data?"
At the midpoint, the story gets less mystical and more annoying. Scammers are not always geniuses. Many are persistent researchers with a flexible relationship to shame. What if I changed careers and became a scammer?
What?
Purely for research. Denied. The archive does not approve villain internships. Also, rent is expensive. But the question is useful because the scammer skill set is weirdly ordinary. Read the room, mirror the target, create urgency, borrow authority, offer an emotional prize, and make the exit feel embarrassing. The scammer sells you a role. You are not just buying stock, you are joining the future. You are not just clicking a link, you are fixing a problem. Responsible people fix quickly. That last sentence is dangerous because it flatters the exact part of the brain that should be checking the evidence. Nothing disarms skepticism faster than making skepticism feel like cowardice. Fraud changes costumes. The buttons stay familiar. Robert Cialdini famously described persuasion principles like authority, scarcity, liking, reciprocity, social proof, and commitment. Authority says, "Trust me." Important people already did. Scarcity says, "Hurry, the door is closing." Liking says, "I understand you." Social proof says, "Everyone else is already in." Commitment says, "You already said yes once, so surely you are not backing out now." This is why old scams keep rebooting with better fonts. Charles Ponzi did not need the internet to sell impossible returns. Modern scammers need the same emotional math. Promise, pressure, proof by crowd, and a story that makes doubt feel like missing out. Theranos had founder myth, elite networks, healthcare urgency, and the aesthetic of scientific inevitability. Madoff had trust, exclusivity, and a reputation that made questions feel rude. Different files, same archive smell. This was a choice. People and institutions repeatedly chose narrative comfort over verification, because verification is slow, awkward, and socially expensive. Scams love anything that makes truth feel impolite. Fallout is where the tone changes.
The ridiculous part is the overconfidence, the costume, the meetings where nobody wanted to ask the basic question out loud. The serious part is that fraud spends other people's money, time, trust, and sometimes health. In Theranos, the harm was not only investor loss. The company operated in a medical space where inaccurate or unreliable testing could affect patient decisions. Diagnostics are not vibes. The body does not care how inspiring the pitch deck was. In financial fraud, the cost can be retirement accounts, charities, family savings, careers, and the belief that institutions know what they are doing. In everyday scams, the cost can be rent money, private data, identity theft, or the quiet shame that keeps victims isolated. The lesson is not trust nobody, live in a bunker, communicate only by encrypted filing cabinets. The lesson is trust should have rails. Verify the claim. Slow the decision. Separate credentials from evidence. So what actually happened here? One company sold a future before the future worked. Investors, media, partners, and powerful names helped the story travel faster than verification. Archive takeaway number 1. Intelligence helps, but it is not armor. Number 2. Credentials are context, not proof. Number 3. Pressure is data. If someone needs you to decide before you can verify, the urgency itself belongs in the evidence folder. Final archive scorecard. Historical importance, 8 out of 10. Trust exploitation, 10 out of 10. Planning quality of the scam checks people skipped, deeply suspicious. Amount of paperwork that should have screamed earlier, several cabinets. An English teacher was arrested for running a conjugation scheme. That pun is legally terrible and emotionally unavoidable. Stamp it, Pidgewick. Real history. Questionable decisions. One suspicious pigeon asking why anyone thought trust should operate without a receipt.
Subscribe and join us on our Patreon. See you next time.